Hi, Kristen Atchison here, and we're going to finish up Chapter 2 and talking about research ethics. So the ethical issues that we have for all of psychology are a little bit more important when we're dealing with children, because we have to make sure we're really safeguarding children's rights, which kind of can also add another layer of ethics upon that. Just like with any research, we need to avoid harm. We need to make sure we're not violating privacy. And the APA, the American Psychological Association, has a code of ethics. And this applies to all psychologists, including students who are doing research as well. And it has ethical standards for research, therapy, teaching, and administration. And this code of ethics kind of can help us solve some of the ethical dilemmas. They've already gone through and done some hypotheticals, and kind of can give us guidelines on how to approach some of these ethical issues. So, with children, we need to really make sure that we're adhering to these codes of ethics. And again, there are these ethic codes. The American Psychological Association has one. There are other ethic codes that psychologists adhere to. And one of the ways that we do this, that we protect children's rights, is IRBs. IRB is an institutional review board, and it's a board at each institution. So Georgia State has an IRB board that all research with human subjects has to go through. And research with children or any other special population goes through another layer, gets a more intense scrutiny from this IRB board than research with adults does, because they are more protected, because they not always are capable of making their own decisions about participation. There's an extra level of scrutiny from these IRB boards. And any research that's done with human subjects has to get approved by an IRB board to do it. So when I was in graduate school, I collected all the stimuli for my infant participants to look at, but I needed to get some information about the stimuli first. And so I did a study where adults just looked at the videos and kind of guessed what they thought the person was trying to tell, what they were communicating, whether they were trying to be an approving tone or a comforting tone. And I wrote up my IRB, and it went to the IRB board, and I had my consent form and all that stuff. And the IRB board actually bounced it back. And they told me that you need to make some revisions to this because you did not list boredom as a possible risk of participating. So the IRB is not joking around. They really want to make sure that participants are informed about all possible risks, including boredom, when participating. So they're again very serious. They have a lot of really great information, and really make sure that things are being done in an ethical way. Informed consent is, again, what we give participants to let them know what the risks are of this, what this research is generally about, benefits of the research, and they have to sign it to make sure that they're willing to participate. Now, for kids, this is difficult. Kids can't actually give legal consent. So when I was doing my research with infants, obviously I wasn't getting my infant participants to sign an informed consent. Who I got to sign the informed consent was parents. And so the parents were the ones that were being informed of the risks and the benefits to participating in this research. That's not saying that infants didn't get a say in whether they participated, or that children don't get a say in whether they participate. Even though a parent signs a consent form, infants and children have to assent to participate. So there are many times that the parents signed a consent form for their child to participate, and the child just didn't want to do it. And they cried, and they were unhappy, and so they did not give their assent. And so these children didn't participate, even though their parents had consented. Another thing that we do to really make sure we're maintaining these ethical issues is debriefing. So a lot of times we won't disclose everything that we think about what's going to happen in this study ahead of time. We won't tell participants the hypothesis. We won't tell them a lot of different, sometimes details. And we can even, some things we might even keep secret so that the study, as part of the study, and again, that would have to be approved by an IRB board ahead of time. But in debriefing, we tell them everything. Debriefing happens afterwards. And so we can go back in and inform people of of the hypotheses about what's going on. And so we would, a parent would sign a consent form, the child would assent and participate, and then afterwards we would debrief them and we would show them the video of their child's participation, and we would tell them what we hypothesize, and whether, and walk them through the study and show them all the details about it, so that they had that debriefing and they had even more information after the study was done. Another really important thing is maintaining confidentiality. Children are given subject numbers or participant numbers, and a lot of times that is blind. And when I was doing research, the sheet that had whose name went with whose participant number and all their biographical information was kept under lock and key. So again, this confidentiality is really, really important. And there's later on, I'll show you guys a video from one of my participants. That participant's parents signed that it was okay to use that video. And still, you don't see any identifying information except the subject number there. So that confidentiality about personal information is maintained. So again, with the ethics research with humans, we have the Belmont report goes through different things that we have to do to really maintain ethical responsibility when we're doing this research. The first thing that we have to really maintain is respect for persons. People are autonomous creatures, and so we need to make sure that our research is allowing them that autonomy. And those with diminished autonomy, so this would be children, this would be anyone that has maybe that is differently able, especially mentally, these are going to have diminished autonomy and not going to be able to have that same consent ability. And so again, we're going to have more protections in place for those individuals because they may not be capable of making those same decisions about consent. How, again, we make sure this is happening is informed consent. And again, we have that additional layer for populations such as children who don't have the same level of autonomy that an adult does. The other thing that we really focus on is justice. Who ought to receive the benefits and who should bear the burdens of research? So justice really comes out of huge missteps that have happened in the past with research. So the Tuskegee syphilis study is a huge example of huge missteps and horrible justice. Those individuals were bearing all the burdens of the research and not receiving any of the benefits. Whereas now that's not allowed. That's not permitted. And those don't meet ethical guidelines. So now if we're saying you're doing any kind of treatment, and the treatment is really and you have a treatment group that's getting the treatment condition and you have a control group that's not, especially in these kind of life-saving situations, if the treatment looks like it is like saving lives, they'll a lot of times cut this study short and give that treatment to the control group. The other thing that happens is the controlled group will still get that treatment, but they'll get that treatment after the end of the study when it's not huge beneficial things. So that again, that everybody can still benefit from this research, and it's not no one group is bearing the burdens. The other thing that we do is we use random assignment so that we're selecting participants fairly. When you're using random assignment, everybody has an equal shot of either being in the control group or the experimental group. And picking the groups that you're working with fairly as well. So not selecting any one particular group. We want our participants to be selected fairly. We want them to be representative of the larger population as a whole. So having even just one group of participants of one race or one ethnic background or one socioeconomic status wouldn't be good in the first place because it wouldn't be representative of the population as a whole. So again, really how we do this is our selection of subjects. And again, random assignment can be a really big part of that. And again, even when we do see treatments that are helpful, sometimes studies are cut short so that more people can get this. And also remember, before any research can be done with humans, it's got to go through that IRB board. And IRB is saying, are we applying justice in this situation? So that's one of the big parts of these ethical rules for research with humans. The last one is the do no harm, the Hippocratic Oath. We really need to make sure that we're securing people's well-beings, that we really are doing this research to do good, and not leaving a wake of harm in the background to find something out. Okay, so we're balancing the quest for more information with that respect for persons, with that ability to not do harm. That harm is not okay. And again, IRB takes this very, very seriously. Remember, boredom was a risk, and so I had to put that in my consent form that there's a risk that if you do this, you're going to be bored. So again, they take this very, very seriously. The other thing is when we're designing research, we want to really make sure that we're maximizing benefits and minimizing risks, so that whatever risks there are very, very much minimized, and that there are more benefits for participating than there are risks. And again, whatever risks they are very, very minimal and informed about ahead of time. And again, this risk-benefit assessment is how we apply that. And again, that is happening both in the designing of the study, that is happening through the IRB board, and that risk-benefit assessment is put in those informed consents. So there is the end of our ethics for developmental research. Thanks. See you in class.